Hey everyone, super excited to bring you another incredible training from our Friday Connect training series. For those of you that are new to the channel, we host these every single Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, completely for free. Now, if you're interested in joining one of these calls, just click the link that's in the top of the description. It's also in the pinned comment. That'll take you over to our Facebook group where you can see all the upcoming calls, all the upcoming topics, and even leave some suggestions for something you want to see us cover in the future. With all that being said, let's just get right into the training.
Appreciate all those good words. And if you guys want to say some stuff like that about yourself in the future, I'll tell you how I did it, because that's the outcome. Let me tell you the beginning starting point. I was $100,000 in debt, hating my life in every way, bankrupt in every way, physically, morally, emotionally, spiritually, every single thing possible. I was struggling with in my life. I was living at home with my parents until I came across some black and white recordings of a man named Napoleon Hill called his 17 Principles of Success. And that made me realize that I have a brain on my shoulders and that it can think, and that if I can think, I can create something. And that started a long path of personal education and personal development. So I am college educated, but it was a waste of time and money. Personal education made me a multimillionaire at a very young age. And what also did that was writing goals down on paper. And I'm gonna explain this entire process for you in a way that you probably never had explained before, because most people don't understand why goals work. They just hear they should have goals, but I'm gonna give you the reasons why. So in order to understand why a goal works, first off, you have to understand who and what you are. So what do you actually think you are? Most people don't even think about what they are, so they don't even have an idea, right? Most people don't even think that they think, so therefore they don't even think about they need to start thinking correctly or differently, right? They just float through life and drift. The first thing is, in order to understand how a goal works, we need to understand who we are, and what we live in. So we live in the past, the present, and the future. Now, why would that matter? Well, in life, everything matters based off of fear and faith. Can we take a risk, right? So fear over here, faith over here, they're both future events that are tied to risk. Meaning if I have the faith that the outcome's gonna be the positive outcome, I'll take the risk. I mean, I'll put the money up, I'll put the time up, I'll take the risk, because I know that the marketing dollars go out, they'll come back. But if I have the fear that the outcome's gonna be negative, I won't take the risk, right? So how do we minimize risk? Data, patterns, historical records. So if we know in the past, A plus B 100 times out of 100 times equals C, therefore, if we have to put money or time or risk up to try to get C, we know if we do A and B, that we're not gonna have that much of a risk. So we're always looking for patterns, and patterns come from the past that we apply in the present that change our future. So our future is the goal that we're trying to hit, but we need to look at the past, the historical record, but not stay stuck in the past, which we may have time to get into, okay? So the first thing is, in order to set accurate goals, we need to have the past, present, and future, because the goals are in the future, okay? The second thing is you need to understand that you are one of two things. You're living externally or internally, or bouncing between both. So we have an external environment, the things that we think affect us, right? God, government, politics, the market, the brokerage we're at, the sponsor we choose, the industry we're in, the marketing strategy we're doing. These are things that we blame when we're not blaming the right thing, when things aren't going right. Because then we have an internal world, which is where everything comes from as far as what the real problems are. So there's a saying by Earl Nightingale that every single one of us is self-made. Only the successful ones of us will admit it, meaning everybody that creates their future knows that success is planned. None of us accidentally got here. We followed a sequential order of events, put on paper, called goals. We're gonna talk about all this as we go through this, and showed up exactly where we knew we were gonna show up. But if you don't know that, you don't attempt to do that, right? So you need to understand that you have on your shoulders a brain. And the two main functions of a brain, it's a historical record of the past, but a creation tool of the future. So it's gonna, all your life events, weddings, funerals, sports, breakups, anything and everything from good to bad is recorded in your mind, or in your brain. You can pull it up only consciously when you're thinking about it, but you have an unconscious record of the past, which is basically like everything stored in there that you're just not focusing on at all times, because you can't remember everything all at once, if that makes sense. So what does that mean? Well, we can pull from what our historical record has and make decisions on what we want the future to be. Now think about this. You have a conscious mind, right? This is the mind that has the ability to choose, accept or reject information. So if I went outside and said, hey, this sky's purple, your conscious mind says, it looks blue to me. You can consciously choose to accept or reject it, but your unconscious mind does not. I could say it's purple, and it doesn't have the ability to say, yes, it is, or no, it's not, right? So the unconscious mind is our emotional mind. It only knows what our conscious mind tells it, right? So when our conscious mind chooses the thought we choose, and our emotional mind does what? It sends a frequency through our body. So our body is our body is a molecular structure. It's a massive energy controlled by our brain, which is an electronic flicking station. So whatever our brain tells our body to feel, our body's going to feel it. So if we get emotionally involved in fear and negativity and negative thoughts, it's telling our body to vibrate on a frequency like anxiety, depression, these things that we don't want to feel. So our body, when you feel bad and you feel that feeling, you're sitting on a frequency. Now, we're going to talk about this real quick, which is the law of vibration. And then also how everything is created in life. And I'm gonna explain frequencies for you guys so you can understand this. Okay. So everything in life has to come through a 3-step process. For you to have the car in your driveway, the house that you want, the family that you want, all this has to come from an intellectual process first, then to emotional, and then to physical. So follow on with me here. You cannot have anything in the world physically unless you have it intellectually first, meaning having an intellectual, you have to have an intellectual understanding of what you want, because you couldn't want it if you didn't. So for example, I give the analogy, if you're living in Africa or the Amazon jungle and you walked up there and you said, do you know what a Ferrari is? They're going to not know what you're talking about. They have no intellectual understanding of it, right? So unless you know what it is and know what you want, or you can't want it then. So you have to have an intellectual understanding, which means if your goal is not what you intellectually understand, you cannot have it. So if my goal is to eat at McDonald's, but I don't know what McDonald's is, I couldn't have had that goal in the first place. So this all makes sense. There has to be an intellectual understanding first. Now that you know what a Lamborghini is or Ferrari is, you might want one. You might tie an emotional involvement into it. So first thing is we have to know what we want and understand it, and understand that it can bring us something that we want in the future if we do this, meaning join insurance industry, real estate industry, so on. Then we have to have an emotional involvement into it. Do you have a higher emotional involvement into getting a 1975 Pinto, or do you want a 2023 Ferrari? Which one are you going to have a higher emotional involvement in? So we move towards what is the most emotionally charged in our life, the events, the tools, the goals for materialism, all these different things. What we emotionally involve ourselves in the most, we move towards, okay? Last thing is, now that we have that emotional involvement in it, it creates the need for the energy to go forward and push past all the short-term headaches that we deal with, problems, doubt, self-limiting beliefs. And then if we do this for long enough, we can physically manifest what we want and actually have it. First thing is, you'll never have anything you don't think about. So if you're not thinking about what you want, the car that you want, the house that you want, it's impossible to have it. Just like if I never think about Taco Bell, I can never show up at Taco Bell. So first thing is, you gotta think about it. I'm gonna tie all this in at the end, guys. So you're doing great. Now we're going to the law of vibration. So you guys hear about the law of attraction, right? So law of attraction is actually a secondary rule off of the primary rule that operates within inside of, which is called the law of vibration. So law of vibration basically states that everything in this world is moving and nothing stops moving. So if I hold this mouse up, it is a mass, an energy force that's just vibrating like this if you looked at it closely. Same thing with this drink right here. Same thing with this pen right here. So everything from you to an object, to a rock, to a bird, to a tree is vibrating. And there's a special type of camera that you can take a picture of this and you can see this energy force coming off of it. So if that means, if everything is moving and everything is made of energy, doesn't that mean the energy moves from one form into another form and transforms out to another form? It has to, right? So the only thing that we know is when my words come to you, it's one form going into you and being transformed into another form where you can interpret it, right? So think about how, like, if there's a tree in the forest is the example I give, and a lightning bolt comes from up here and hits that tree. So you have a lightning bolt, an energy force that hits another piece of energy, a mass sitting here, and then it turns into what? A fireball and burns down. So energy hits energy and transformed into a different energy source. This is how we're going to take information in, study, and redeploy it out as far as, like, I learned something, now I'm going to apply it and I can physically have it, if that makes sense. We're changing the form. We're taking something from a book from the past, absorbing it and applying with energy today that can transform into a goal hit in the future, if that makes sense. This may be a little bit high over your heads, but I'm gonna tie it all in here in a second. Okay, so what the law of vibration basically states is everything sits on a frequency. Now, what is a frequency? I'm gonna hopefully make this easy for you to understand. So look at a radio station, your favorite radio station. If you're on rap, can you be listening to country? No, you can't, because you're on the rap station. If you're on techno music, can you listen to country music? No, you can't. So imagine every radio station just like you have them side by side, but it's an infinite amount of them. They never end. It's endless, the amount of frequencies that we're on. Now, how do we match the frequency to increase the likelihood that we hit our goals? Well, we need to think about them. So think about what Google is. How does Google work? There's all this information floating in the sky, right? Infinite amount of frequencies floating up there. So how do we get what we want from Google? We match the frequency. We hit it, we type in a keyword, cats, dogs, unicorns, hippos. So if I go into Google right now, there's an infinite power source up there, and I type in cats, what am I going to get? A bunch of gorillas, a bunch of donkeys? Now I'm going to get what I'm thinking on, right? Does that make sense? Our thoughts are the keyword that we put into our universal field. If you look at Google, having a universal field of infinite intelligence, infinite frequencies, the way we tap into the frequency of what we want is we type in cats. And that same Google bar, that same, what you're looking on the computer turns into images, articles, pictures, and videos of cats. But if I type in dogs, I'm matching the frequency, and I'm going to pull towards me the law of attraction or the law of forward motion, whatever you want to look at it, towards me, right? So what does that mean? You're moving towards what you're thinking about. So you guys are thinking about the wrong thing because that's what you have. So if you don't have the amount of money you have or want, it's because you're thinking about the wrong thing. If you don't have the car that you want, the house that you want, because you're not thinking about, right? So we need to match the frequency, because if we don't, we'll never have what we want, okay? Now, let's go into a couple other things here real quick. Let's talk about why this is important with how we actually set our goals. So we have 5 different senses, right? Taste, touch, sound, all our different senses. Now, each time we do one of these, any of these things, so if I drink this drink, what did I do? I activated brain cells, okay? If I touch this, I'm touching energy. I'm energy touching energy, right? So we're creating an activation of this, right? So let's think of it like this. If I write my goals on a piece of paper, what does that mean? Just like this. I transferred my energy to this piece of paper. Now, if it's in written form, okay, what if I read these words out? It's in written form, but it creates a picture in my mind. Now, how does anything in this world get created? We have to first have the thought in our mind, like, I want to create a painting. The second thing we have to have is a vision of what it's going to look like in our mind, right? Because you can't paint something on a piece of paper that you don't see in your mind. So you have to have the thought first, and then you have to visualize it to create it, right? So what we're doing every time we write our goals and touch them is it brings our mind to a moment where we're reading the goal in word form, but creates and imprints a picture into our unconscious mind in a visual form in our mind. So you hear the practice of visualization. So we have what's called sensory overload. So if you read about a baseball game in the newspaper, or listen to it over the radio, or go to it, watch it on the TV, or go to it in person, which one has the most sensory overload? Think about taste, touch, sound, emotion, how we feel it. If you just read about a newspaper, but listen to it over the radio, now you're hearing the audio side instead of just touching it and reading it, right? If you watch it on TV, now you hear the audio side, but you also see the picture, the visualization. And if you go to the game, you're there and you feel the emotion, you smell the nachos and the popcorn, right? So the higher the sensory overload, the more likely we are to get emotionally involved in what we're dealing with. So how many of you guys had a higher emotional involvement at the baseball game with the fans there versus just reading about it in your room on paper, right? So it's important that we get emotionally involved. And the more senses that we have consuming the information, the easier the picture is to visualize, right? Or to have an attachment to. So what we want to do with our goals is the first thing, we need intellectual understanding of what we want in the future. So we think about it first, and then we write our goals down. So we're going to write our goals down first. So we have them in written form. Then what do? We read these aloud. We speak them. We speak them into existence. We speak our goals out loud, creating that energy vibration into affirmations. And as we speak them, so step 1, write them down. Step 2, speak them into a recording. So you're speaking them aloud, and then you're going to listen to your own affirmations. You're going to listen to these again, right? So then you're going to listen to them, and then we're going to visualize them. We're going to take them in the goals that we know we want, and we're going to create a vision board or something in visual form that we keep in front of us so that we can see it all the time. And the last thing is we're going to touch these goals. We're actually going to experience them. We're going to drive down to the dealership of the car we want. There's a term called smell the leather. It's meaning touch what you want, because it creates an emotional attachment to it, because now that you have a shared energy with it, if that makes sense. We're now touching the car that we want. It's now in our conscious thought process. We're there. I'm driving the Lamborghini. So if I drive a Lamborghini, I'm moving just a little bit closer to believing that I can have the Lamborghini. If I never go to the dealership, I will just never believe I can have it, right? So years ago, when I was 100K in debt, it's about a mile from my house, I used to run to this Porsche dealership, and I'd run down there every time. And I'd run through the Porsches late at night, and I'd just look at them and I'd touch them. Probably shouldn't have touched them, right? But I knew what I was doing. I was creating an attachment of the future that I could have it, because the closer you are to it in proximity, the more likely your brain starts to believe it can have it. And what we can conceive in our mind, we can believe we can have, and then we can achieve it in the real world. If you guys understand Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, right? So first off, we need to write our goals, speak our goals, listen to our goals, visualize our goals, and touch our goals. Higher sensory overload, the more likely you are to achieve, right? Think about the baseball game and so on. Okay. Now, what is a goal actually? And how do we actually show up at anything in life in the future? Well, we need to know where we're at in the present. So a snapshot of where we're at right now. I don't have the money I want, don't have the car I want, don't have the life I want, don't have the business I want. So I know where I'm at today. And then I need the ending point, right? The GPS. I need to know where I'm going tomorrow. So those are the two things I need to know, because all the directions fill in the middle. You don't have the directions given to you first and then the address where you're going. You need to know the outcome and the starting point, and then the middle can fill it in. But if you don't know the outcome, you have no way to fill the directions in the middle. So we have to know where we're going. And so the way that we set our goals, or at least I do, is I do these based off the hour. So in a day, and on any individual day, I'm going to set my hourly tasks. So for example, this is an hourly task, right? This is a goal. Come in here, do the best I can on this call for you guys. Hopefully not confuse you guys, hopefully motivate you guys and give you some information you haven't heard before, right? So that's an hourly goal. Then I break my day down into quarterly goals, or I break them down to four hour chunks. So 12 hours, not quarterly, I guess third goals. So the first 4 hours, second 4 hours, next 4 hours of the day. And so I break these down little windows of time instead of looking as one 12-hour day. And then I break my goals down for the weekly goals, the monthly goals, the quarter annually goals, I guess every 90 days. And then I have my annual goals. Then I set 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 30-year goals, and afterlife goals. And sometimes I used to set like incremental goals, like 20 and everything in between. I don't think that's that important. But what I want you to understand is the farther in the future your goal is set, the more likely you are to hit it. So if you're setting a goal a year from now, and that's your biggest goal, as compared to someone setting a 30-year goal, they're more likely to hit a 30-year goal than a 1-year goal. And this has been studied over and over and over by massive amounts of studies tracking people that goal set. Now, what's even farther than the farthest point of future? Afterlife, right? Afterlife goals. So if you want to set a goal that's the farthest in the future, it'd be the one that's being hit after you're not here, meaning create a legacy, do something with your life that once your life is over, that you're impacting lives even when you're not here. I believe that should be everybody's biggest goal. And also when you set a goal outside of yourself for somebody else and other people, it makes you more likely to hit your goal. So like when things get tough, if it's just, hey, if I have to keep going to get another car, probably not going to work. But hey, if I don't get this goal hit, my son's going to die because I can't afford the surgery, I'm probably a little bit more motivated to go get that goal done, right? So how much time do I have, Tharmel? I'm trying to cover a lot really fast. But ultimately, what I want you guys to understand is if you do not have an understanding of that we live in the past, present, and future, you can't understand that you can set a goal in the present that can change the future based off past information. If you don't understand that there's an external world and an internal world, you're going to understand yourself. You'll feel like this, that the world, everything around you is the reason why you're not where you're at, not because of yourself. And so you're going to blame the industry you're in, God, government, anything and everything. And then what do? You quit. You move to the next thing, you're going to quit. Right before you move to the next thing, you're going to quit. Right before you quit that, before you go quit the next thing, you're going to quit, because you keep moving away from the external. So what happens is you think it's, oh, well, it's just my boss over here or my job over here. So you move over to a different environment, and it feels like the last one, didn't it? Same type of environment. Now I moved to a different brokerage. Hey, it kind of feels like the last one. Why do I still have these same problems? Then you escape to the next environment, and you keep escaping to environments, but you can't escape because you're the problem, and it chases you everywhere you go. So you realize this, right? It's a moment of awareness, and it's this foundational starting point. When we realize we messed up and we're the one causing this, now we have the ability to change this. So you have to have an understanding that your internal thought process, your mind is a creation tool, not just a historical record of the past. You can create the future by writing goals on pen and paper and focusing on them. So you hear the law of attraction. The law of attraction is not that we're attracting things to us. It's that the things that we focus on, we move towards. So if I'm focusing on golf all the time and not baseball, I'm probably going to swing more golf clubs than baseball bats. If that makes sense. So what I focus on, I move towards. So I really think the law of attraction should be changed to the law of forward motion based off of focus, because that's really what we do. We focus on something and we move towards it with our energy. And then it feels like it came to us, right? But we're moving towards what we're thinking about and following up with energy. So you have to understand there's an internal, external, and that you control the internal. That gives you the ability to understand you can control the future. And then if you go back over your conscious, unconscious mind-body connection, this is so important to understand. We choose the thoughts that we want in our mind. If we choose the negative one, we'll shift our body into a negative emotion, because our mind controls our body and how we feel in our body. And if we're in a negative feeling, what does that do? It makes us probably not have a great attitude. And if we have a bad attitude, do we push people away from us? Do we run partners off? Do we run business off? Do we run our children and families off, right? But if we have the thought process of the positive side of the spectrum and think on the positive things, the optimistic things, we feel better in our body. We're feeling a different emotion. We're vibrating on a different frequency, which changes to a good attitude. And when we have a good attitude, people want to come to us, work with us, and stay with us. It's very important to understand what I'm talking about there. Okay. Just to repeat, if you understand law of vibration, means everything's an energy force. So therefore, to be able to understand how we need to set goals, we need to understand all the different ways energy can be perceived by ourselves. Taste, touch, sound, what we just talked about. So we should set our goals in all forms, increasing the likelihood that we hold the picture of what we want, meaning the GPS location of the future that we're staying on, that we can now focus on enough to move towards. Because if you don't have a fixed GPS, what's going to happen is you're going to deviate this way. You're going to go off this way. Something else is going to come in. Hey, I was going to conquer the world over here. And then John said, here's another opportunity. Oh, I just shoot over here. And then I shoot over here, right? If you do not hold a convicted line to the future, you'll never show up in the future, right? So we need that GPS point. So we need to know what we want and focus on it all the time, because if we don't, we cannot actually have it. And then by setting your goals incrementally, daily, annually, and so on, and also in the future, you're going to have achievable goals in the short run, which will keep the winning streak and the momentum, but you have the big goal in the long run, the long-term GPS system that you're going towards, and you're more likely to hit your goals the longer you set your goals in the future, and the more of an emotional attachment to those goals. Remember, sensory overload. And then if your goals are tied to somebody else outside yourself, because if it's just for yourself, you're less likely to hit those goals. Okay. So hopefully that helps guys a little bit understand that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Connor. Wow. Does anybody have any question or want to add anything? Yeah, that was really amazing. Honestly, I don't think it ever been explained like this before. I think you used such great example of how goal setting works, because we always hear about it from, strategically, make it smart, make it specific, make it timely, and then you'll achieve them. But those are great, but how could you truly achieve it if the focus is in the feelings, emotions? You touched on it from a really on another level that is beyond just paper and pen, and I love that. Wow.
So we talk about patterns and sequences, and so you guys probably heard like the competence quadrant, right? Or it's not actually called that, but I call it quadrant. So you hear unconscious competency, conscious competency, unconscious competency, unconscious incompetency, and conscious incompetency. Sorry, not confused, guys. So what unconscious incompetency is you're messing up in every way, nothing's working, you don't even know why. Unconscious competency is you're messing up in every way, nothing's working, but you know why you're messing up. So you're now trying to fix the problem. Now, unconscious competency, is you're doing great, results are happening, but you don't know why. This is like when I was playing sports. I used to be really good at baseball. It's because I played baseball all the time and I didn't have a coach or anything. It's just I played over and over through repetition. Therefore, I couldn't tell you why I was doing good, but I was doing well, if that makes sense. Where conscious competent is someone that knows, here's why I'm doing well. It's because my hands are held at this position. I'm torqued, my hips are moving like this, right? So if you don't know why something is happening, you cannot teach it later. And if you want to run a business and have employees or agents and have anything that duplicates, which is a business, right? Meaning getting what we know outside of ourselves into others so they can replicate it, then you need to be able to teach it, right? And so most people are, even that they use goals and do things like this that you hear in like personal development, they have a slight understanding and they're doing the right thing because people outside that understand what they're doing are telling them to do it, but they don't understand actually why it's working, right? But once you understand kind of the why of why it's working, now you can actually go follow that step-by-step process like a cookbook. Now you have the rules to play the game, the step-by-step sequential order that you need to follow to have the outcome in the future. That's why in business, guys, you need to start tracking data, because if you have patterns, you can exploit the future. So if I know a pattern says this, and this is most likely to be this, how risky is the future if I look at past historical events to make my goals to do this in the future, right? So if I know that there's been this many people come before me that had this positive result, I know my likelihood is possible to have that same positive result, which minimizes the risk for me to spend money and time. So if Tharmel is teaching me about KV Core and I see that she ran a campaign, she's returning $2 for one. Kyle did the same one, $2 for one. Rose on here does 2 for 1. Well, I can be pretty sure that if I did a very similar thing, I'll get 2 for 1, if that makes sense. So we need to have data. We need to understand that data. And then also we need to use that data to set our goals in the future and it helps us. The more data we have, the more aggressive we can get on our goals, because it lets us have more accurate information on, if I spend the time and money, will the future bring back the negative or positive result? If that makes sense. But yeah, so hopefully I gave you guys a little bit understanding of like actually why this works with like past, present, future, internal, external thought processes, and then the way that energy transfers into us and through us, because when you're looking at me, technically, I'm not what you think I am. You're seeing energy coming to you, but it looks like that because your brain is taking the energy in through your eyes, and then you're seeing a picture of me in your brain, if that makes sense. So audio wise, like think about somebody that's blind, but if they hear words, do they still see a picture in their mind? Right? So you can see a picture in your mind even though you can't see it with your eyes. And so it's very important to understand that. So when you write something on pen and paper, you're taking that pen, which is energy, and touching it to a piece of paper that's energy. And so if you have this goal card in your pocket and you're having a bad day and you forget where you're going, you forgot your GPS system, you're going this direction and the day messed up, then you turn this way, and then you grab your goal card because you went to grab your keys. You pull it out, you go, oh yeah, I forgot I'm supposed to be on this mission to change my life, to help my family, to secure my future. And it brings you back to the right direction, right? So every time that we lose focus, we slow our progression to our goals. So our goals in visual form on our visual wall are to help curate the picture in our mind to keep us focused on what we want. Written form, if we listen to them through audio, everything we're doing is trying to maintain that future endpoint, if that makes sense, so we don't deviate off of it, because there's all sorts of friends, family, government, people coming in to tell you can't do things, go this way, go that way, go my way. But if you don't say, this is the way I'm going, I'm staying this way, someone's going to take you to their goals, not your goals, if that makes sense. Okay.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something useful. If you're interested in partnering with our record-breaking organization, the Wolfpack, here at eXp Realty, completely for free, just click the link that's in the pinned comment. We can set up a time to talk, and we can see whether or not we'd be a good fit for each other. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor, click the like button down below, and make sure to subscribe. We're going to be posting videos like this on the channel every single week. And be sure to join the Facebook page. The link is in the top of the description. It's also in the pinned comment. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.